Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES horizon, watching the stars drift past the main view screen. 3 months into their survey mission of the Kepler 442 system, the routine had become almost boring. Map asteroids, scan for minerals, check for signs of life, move to the next sector. It was important work, but Jake had joined the Space Service hoping for adventure, not endless cataloging of empty rocks. "Captain, I'm picking up something unusual," called Dr. Lisa Hayes from her science station. Her voice carried that excited tone that made everyone on the bridge look up from their tasks. Lisa was the best science officer Jake had ever worked with, and she never got excited about normal asteroid readings. Jake walked over to her station, his boots making soft sounds on the metal deck. "What kind of unusual?" Lisa's fingers moved quickly across her control panel, bringing up a 3-dimensional display of the asteroid field they were surveying. Most of the rocks showed up as simple gray dots, but one object pulsed with a soft blue light. "There's an energy signature coming from Sector 7. It's not like anything in our databases." Engineer Kyle Brooks looked up from his repair work near the back of the bridge. Kyle was a quiet man who preferred machines to people, but he had an amazing ability to understand any piece of technology he encountered. "Could be a crashed ship," he suggested, wiping grease from his hands with a cloth. "That's what I thought too," Lisa said, adjusting the display to show more detail. "But look at the size readings." The display zoomed in on the mysterious object, and Jake felt his breath catch in his throat. The thing was massive, easily 10 times larger than the horizon. It drifted slowly through the asteroid field like a sleeping giant, its hull reflecting the distant sun in strange ways. "Amanda, try to get a better image," Jake ordered, turning to the communication station where Amanda Clark sat surrounded by screens showing various sensor readings. Amanda was young for her position, but she had a gift for coaxing information from stubborn equipment. Her hands flew over the controls and the main view screen shifted to show a clearer picture of the mysterious object. What they saw made everyone on the bridge fall silent. The ship looked ancient beyond measure, its hull covered in intricate patterns that seemed to shift and change as they watched. The metal appeared to be some kind of crystalline material that absorbed light in some places and reflected it brilliantly in others. Despite its age, the vessel showed no signs of damage or decay. "Danny, what do you make of it from a security standpoint?" Jake asked, looking toward the security station where Danny Wright was already running threat assessments. Danny was a former military man who saw potential danger in everything, which made him excellent at his job. He frowned at his readings, his weathered face creased with concern. "Sir, I'm not detecting any weapon signatures, but something this big could be dangerous just by existing. The power readings are all over the place. My instruments can't decide if it's completely dead or fully operational." Jake nodded, studying the image on the screen. In 20 years of space travel, he had never seen anything like it. The ship's design didn't match any known species in the galactic databases. It wasn't human, obviously, but it also didn't look like the sleek curves preferred by the Zephyrians or the geometric blocks favored by the Altarians. "Lisa, can you determine how old it is?" Jake asked. Dr. Hayes ran several scans, her expression growing more puzzled by the minute. "Captain, this is impossible. The quantum dating puts it at roughly 3 billion years old, but the hull material shows no signs of age-related deterioration. It's like time hasn't touched it." Kyle stepped closer to look at the readings. 3 billion years? That's older than most star systems in this region. What could have built something like that so long ago? More importantly, Danny added, what happened to whoever built it? Jake stared at the ancient vessel, feeling a strange pull toward it. Something about the ship called to him, though he couldn't explain what or why. "Amanda, try standard first contact protocols. Send out a greeting. In Galactic Common." Amanda nodded and began transmitting the standard diplomatic greeting used throughout known space. They waited, watching the ship for any response. Minutes passed with no change in the energy readings or any visible reaction from the vessel. "Try the Zephyrian frequencies," Jake suggested. The Zephyrians were known for their advanced communication technology and had established contact with more species than any other known race. Again, Amanda sent out carefully crafted signals designed to show peaceful intent and desire for communication. The ancient ship continued its slow drift through the asteroid field, showing no sign that it had even noticed their presence. "What about mathematical sequences?" Lisa suggested. "Prime numbers, geometric progressions, that kind of thing. If there's any intelligence left aboard that ship, mathematics should be universal." Amanda spent the next hour transmitting various mathematical concepts, from simple counting sequences to complex equations that showed their level of technological development. Still, the ancient vessel remained silent and unresponsive. Jake was beginning to think they were dealing with nothing more than a derelict when something changed. The ship's slow tumble through space began to shift slightly. It was subtle, barely noticeable, but the navigation computer confirmed it. The ancient vessel was changing course. "It's moving toward us," Danny reported, his hand moving instinctively toward the weapons controls. Very slowly, but definitely adjusting its trajectory to match ours. "Shields up," Jake ordered, though he wasn't sure their defensive systems would be much use against something that massive and potentially advanced. "But keep weapons powered down. I don't want to seem threatening." The ancient ship continued its slow approach, and as it grew larger on their view screen, more details became visible. The hull was covered in symbols and patterns that seemed to flow like liquid metal. Sections of the ship glowed with soft internal light, creating the impression of a vast organism rather than a machine. "Captain, I'm detecting some kind of scanning beam," Lisa reported. "It's very subtle, not like anything in our databases. I think it's studying us." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. Something that had drifted silently through space for 3 billion years was now actively examining his ship and crew. "What kind of scan?" "I'm not sure. It seems to be focused on our communication arrays and life support systems, almost like it's trying to understand how we work." Kyle looked up from his engineering station, where he had been monitoring their ship's systems. "Whatever it's doing, it's not harmful. All our systems are running normally." The ancient ship continued its approach until it was close enough that its bulk filled their entire view screen. Up close, the strange patterns on its hull became even more mesmerizing, shifting and flowing in ways that seemed to follow some invisible rhythm. "Sir," Amanda said quietly, "I'm picking up very faint transmissions from the ship, too weak and garbled to make out, but it's definitely trying to communicate something." Jake made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. "All right, people, we came out here to explore and make contact with the unknown. That's exactly what we've found. Amanda, keep trying different communication methods. Lisa, I want continuous scans of that ship. Kyle, make sure our systems can handle any surprises. Danny, stay alert but don't do anything aggressive unless I give the order." As his crew went to work, Jake continued to stare at the ancient vessel. Something about it felt familiar, though that was impossible. No human had ever seen anything like it before. Yet the feeling persisted, as if the ship was somehow calling to him personally. He had no way of knowing that his instinct was absolutely correct, or that the next few hours would reveal humanity's true place in the galaxy. For the next 6 hours, Amanda Clark tried everything she could think of to communicate with the ancient ship. She sent mathematical sequences that would make a computer science professor proud. She transmitted the periodic table of elements in 3 different formats. She even tried musical patterns, thinking that rhythm might be a universal language. Nothing worked. The massive vessel continued to drift alongside the horizon, its strange hull patterns flowing like water, but it gave no sign that it understood or even noticed their attempts at communication. "Try the Altairian harmonic frequencies," Dr. Lisa Hayes suggested from her science station. She had been studying the ship's energy patterns for hours, trying to find some clue about how to reach whatever intelligence might still exist aboard the ancient vessel. Amanda adjusted her equipment and began transmitting the complex sound patterns that the crystalline beings from Altair used to communicate. The frequencies were so high that humans couldn't hear them without special equipment, but they carried incredible amounts of information in their subtle variations. The ancient ship remained silent. "What about the deep space traders?" Kyle Brooks suggested, looking up from where he was fine-tuning their sensor array. They use those old quantum burst patterns for long-distance communication. Amanda tried those too, sending carefully timed bursts of energy that could carry messages across vast distances. The quantum patterns were one of the oldest known forms of space communication, used by dozens of different species throughout the galaxy. Still no response from the ancient vessel. Captain Jake Morrison paced the bridge, his frustration growing with each failed attempt. Every instinct told him that the ship was aware of them, that something inside that massive hull was listening and watching. But no matter what they tried, they couldn't establish any kind of meaningful contact. "Sir," Danny Wright called from his security station, "I'm detecting increased activity in several sections of the ship. Power levels are rising in what looks like major systems. It's definitely doing something." Jake stopped pacing and stared. At the view screen, where the ancient ship filled their entire field of view, some of the flowing patterns on its hull were glowing brighter now, and he could see what looked like docking bays opening and closing along its massive length. "Maybe it's trying to communicate through actions instead of signals," Lisa suggested. "Some species use visual displays or physical movements to convey meaning." "Amanda, try copying some of those light patterns," Jake ordered. "See if we can mirror what it's doing." Amanda worked to match the pulsing lights they could see on the ship's hull, using their own external lighting systems to create similar patterns. For a moment, it seemed like the ancient vessel responded, its lights growing brighter and more active. But then the display faded back to its previous level, leaving them no closer to real communication. Jake slumped into his captain's chair, feeling defeated. 3 billion years old, and the ship was right there next to them. But they might as well have been trying to talk to a mountain. "Captain," Amanda said quietly, "maybe we're thinking about this wrong. We've been trying all the standard galactic communication protocols, but what if this ship is older than all of those? What if it doesn't know any of the languages or methods that modern species use?" "What are you suggesting?" Jake asked. Amanda turned in her chair to face him, her young face serious with concentration. "What if we try older languages? Really old ones. From Earth, I mean. Before we joined the galactic community, humans had thousands of different languages. Maybe something that ancient would recognize older forms of communication." Kyle snorted, with skepticism. "You want to try talking to a 3-billion-year-old alien ship in human languages? That doesn't make much sense." "It doesn't make less sense than anything else we've tried," Danny pointed out. "At this point, we might as well give it a shot." Jake considered the idea. It seemed unlikely that an ancient alien vessel would respond to human languages, but Amanda was right that they had exhausted all the standard options. "All right, Amanda, try it. Start with Galactic Common, but use older Earth languages if that doesn't work." Amanda turned back to her station and began transmitting a simple greeting in Galactic Common, the standardized language used throughout human space. The message was basic but friendly, explaining who they were and asking for some kind of response. The ancient ship showed no reaction. "Try English," Jake suggested. It was the most widely spoken human language and the base for Galactic Common. Amanda switched to English, speaking clearly into her microphone. "Hello. We are explorers from Earth. We come in peace and wish to communicate with you." Still nothing from the massive vessel. "What about some of the older Earth languages?" Lisa suggested. She was fascinated by ancient cultures and had studied several dead languages in her spare time. "Try Latin. That was used by scholars for centuries." Amanda cleared her throat and spoke slowly in Latin, pronouncing each word carefully. "Salvi, nos sumus exploratores ex terra, in pace venimus et communicare vobiscum cupimus." The moment the Latin words left her lips, something incredible happened. Lights began flickering to life across the ancient ship's hull. Not the slow, steady glow they had seen before, but rapid, excited flashing that made the entire vessel look like it was waking up from a long sleep. Everyone on the bridge stared in amazement as section after section of the ship began to illuminate. The flowing patterns on the hull moved faster now, swirling and dancing with what could only be described as joy. "My God," Lisa whispered, watching her instruments register massive changes in the ship's energy output. "It's responding. Power levels are increasing throughout the entire vessel." Try another language, Jake ordered, his heart racing with excitement. Something else ancient. Amanda switched to ancient Greek, speaking words she had learned in her classical studies. Cheirete, esmen erionetai apoteskes, erkometha en irene. The response was even more dramatic. Entire sections of the ancient ship that had been dark for billions of years suddenly blazed with warm golden light. The hull patterns shifted from their slow, steady flow to rapid, complex movements that reminded Jake of a language written in light and motion. It's trying to talk back, Amanda said, her voice filled with wonder. Look at the patterns. They're not random. There's structure there, like it's trying to form words or sentences. Kyle shook his head in disbelief. This is impossible. How can a ship that's billions of years old know human languages that are only a few thousand years old? Maybe it doesn't know the languages, Lisa said thoughtfully. Maybe it's responding to something else. The vocal patterns, the way humans speak. There might be something about human voices that it recognizes. Try more languages, Jake urged. Different ones. See what gets the strongest response. Amanda began cycling through various ancient human languages. She tried Sanskrit, getting a warm pulse of light from several sections of the ship. Hebrew produced a different pattern of responses, with lights cascading from one end of the vessel to the other. When she spoke in ancient Chinese, entire bays along the ship's length began opening and closing in a rhythmic pattern. But the strongest response came when she returned to English. The moment she began speaking in her natural voice, using normal, conversational English, the ancient ship came fully alive. Lights blazed across its entire length. The hull patterns moved in complex, beautiful formations, and they could see what looked like dozens of docking bays extending toward their much smaller vessel. It likes English best, Amanda reported, watching her instruments track the ship's responses. Or maybe it just likes the way I speak English. The emotional inflection, the natural rhythm of conversation. Keep talking to it, Jake ordered. Tell it about us, about Earth, about why we're here. Amanda began speaking naturally to the ancient ship, describing their exploration mission, their peaceful intentions, and their amazement at finding such an incredible vessel. As she spoke, the ship's responses became more complex and organized. The light patterns began to take on structure, almost like written text flowing across the hull. Captain, Danny called from his station, you need to see this. The ship is generating some kind of energy field between us and it. It looks like it's creating a docking tunnel. Jake stared at the view screen where a shimmering tube of energy was extending from the ancient vessel toward their ship. The tunnel was perfectly formed with what appeared to be atmosphere and artificial gravity inside it. It wants us to come aboard, Lisa said quietly. A ship that's been silent for 3 billion years is inviting us inside because we spoke to it in human languages. The tunnel reached their ship and sealed itself to their airlock with impossible precision. Lights along its length pulsed in a welcoming pattern that needed no translation. Jake stood up slowly, understanding that they were facing a moment that would change everything. Amanda, keep talking to it. Let it know we understand the invitation and that we're honored by it. As Amanda continued her conversation with the ancient ship, Jake realized that they were no longer just explorers who had stumbled across an interesting discovery. They were about to step inside a vessel that had been waiting for human voices to wake it up, and he had no idea what they would find there. Captain Jake Morrison stood at the airlock, looking through the small window at the energy tunnel that connected their ship to the ancient vessel. The tunnel glowed with soft blue light, and he could see what looked like perfectly breathable atmosphere inside it. The technology required to create such a thing was far beyond anything humans or any other known species could achieve. Sir, I really think we should contact headquarters before we board that ship, Danny Wright said for the third time. The security chief was clearly uncomfortable with the idea of entering an unknown vessel without backup or proper authorization. By the time we get a message to Earth and receive orders back, this ship might decide to leave, Jake replied. We may never get another chance like this. Dr. Lisa Hayes finished her scans of the energy tunnel and looked up from her portable scanner. The atmosphere inside the tunnel is perfect for humans. 21% oxygen, correct pressure, no harmful substances. It's like the ship analyzed our biology and created exactly what we need to survive. How is that possible? Kyle Brooks asked, adjusting the portable equipment he would carry with him. Even if this ship has been watching us, it couldn't learn our atmospheric requirements just from external scans. I don't know, Lisa admitted. But the readings are clear. We can breathe in there safely. Jake made his decision. Lisa, Kyle, Danny, you're with me. Amanda, you stay here and maintain communication with both the ship and our base. If something goes wrong, you get the Horizon out of here and report back to headquarters. Amanda nodded from her position at the communications station. I'll keep talking to the ship too. It seems to like conversation and I don't want it to think we're abandoning it. The 4 crew members put on their emergency suits as a precaution, even though the scans showed the tunnel was safe. Jake had learned long ago that in space, it was better to be too careful than not careful enough. They checked their equipment one final time and activated their helmet communicators. Testing communication, Jake said into his helmet microphone. Loud and clear, Captain. Amanda's voice came back through their speakers. The ship's energy readings are stable. Whatever it's doing to maintain that tunnel, it's not straining its power systems. Jake opened the airlock and stepped into the energy tunnel. The moment his feet touched the glowing surface, he felt a strange sensation, like a gentle vibration that seemed to welcome him. The tunnel felt solid underfoot, but he could see the space between the 2 ships through the translucent walls. This is incredible, Lisa said as she followed him into the tunnel. The energy field is supporting our weight perfectly, and it's maintaining atmospheric pressure without any visible barriers. They walked across the tunnel toward the ancient ship, their footsteps making no sound on the energy surface. As they got closer to the massive vessel, Jake could see intricate details in its hull that hadn't been visible from their ship. The flowing patterns weren't just decorative, they seemed to be some kind of writing or information display that moved and changed as they watched. The tunnel led them to an opening in the ship's hull that had formed specifically for their arrival. There was no airlock, no mechanical door, just a smooth opening that appeared as they approached and sealed itself behind them once they were inside. Amanda, do you copy? Jake spoke into his communicator. Yes, sir. Still receiving you clearly. How does it look in there? Jake looked around at their surroundings and struggled to find words. They stood in a corridor that was clearly designed for humanoid beings, but the architecture was unlike anything he had ever seen. The walls curved gracefully, covered in the same flowing patterns they had observed on the ship's exterior. The ceiling provided perfect lighting that seemed to come from the material itself, rather than from fixtures. It's beautiful, he said, finally. And it seems to be designed for beings our size. The corridor is the right height, the lighting is adjusted for human vision. That's impossible, Kyle said, running his scanner along the walls. This ship is billions of years old. How could it be designed for humans? Maybe it's adapting itself to us, Lisa suggested. Some kind of smart material that changes based on who's inside. As they spoke, the walls around them began to glow more brightly, and the flowing patterns moved faster. Jake had the distinct impression that the ship was listening to their conversation and responding to it. Let's keep moving, he decided. Stay together and keep your scanners running. I want to know everything about this place. They walked deeper into the ship, following a corridor that seemed to guide them toward the vessel's interior. Side passages branched off in all directions, but the main path was clearly marked by brighter lighting and more active wall patterns. Captain, I'm reading massive spaces ahead, Lisa reported, studying her scanner. Some kind of large chambers, multiple levels. This ship is even bigger inside than it looked from outside. They reached the end of the corridor and stepped through an opening into a vast chamber that took their breath away. The space was enormous, with a ceiling that disappeared into darkness high above them. Along the walls, arranged in perfect rows, were thousands of cylindrical containers, each one glowing with soft internal light. Are those what I think they are? Danny asked quietly. Lisa was already scanning the nearest containers, her face pale with amazement. They're stasis pods, thousands of them, and they're all occupied. Jake moved closer to examine one of the pods. Inside, suspended in some kind of fluid, was a being unlike anything in the galactic databases. It had a humanoid shape, but was clearly not human. Its skin was a pale blue color. and it had features that seemed both familiar and completely alien. "This one's alive," Lisa said, checking her readings. "In perfect stasis. All vital signs stable. It's like it's been sleeping for billions of years." They moved through the chamber, examining more pods. Each one contained a different type of being. Some looked almost human, others were completely alien. Jake saw beings with extra arms, others with crystal formations growing from their skin, and some that seemed to be made of living energy. "It's like a zoo," Kyle said quietly, "or a museum. Representatives of different species, all preserved, in perfect condition." "No," Lisa said, studying her scanner readings more carefully. "It's more than that. Look at the genetic diversity within each species. These aren't just specimens, these are complete breeding populations. Enough genetic material to restart entire civilizations." The implications of what she was saying hit Jake like a physical blow. "You're saying this ship is some kind of ark, built to preserve life?" "That's exactly what I'm saying. Someone built this ship to save life from extinction. Species from across the galaxy, maybe across the universe, all gathered here and kept safe." They continued exploring, finding chamber after chamber filled with stasis pods. The ship was massive beyond their wildest imagination, containing what appeared to be millions of preserved beings from thousands of different species. "Captain," Amanda's voice crackled through their communicators. "You need to hear this. The ship is transmitting something new. Complex harmonic patterns. It's like it's trying to tell me something important." "What kind of patterns?" Jake asked. "I'm not sure, but they started right after you entered that big chamber. It's like the ship is excited about something. The patterns are getting more complex and organized." They reached the center of the chamber, where a raised platform held something that made them all stop in amazement. It was a crystalline structure about the size of a person, pulsing with internal light that seemed to beat like a heart. The crystal was connected to the ship's systems by thousands of thin energy conduits that spread throughout the chamber like a nervous system. "That's the ship's brain," Kyle said with certainty. "The central intelligence that's been running everything." As they approached the crystal, the pulsing light grew brighter and faster. The wall patterns throughout the chamber began moving in synchronized waves, all flowing toward the central crystal. "It knows we're here," Lisa said quietly. "It's been waiting for us." Jake stepped closer to the crystal, feeling that same strange pull he had experienced when they first saw the ship. "Hello," he said simply. "We're here to meet you." The crystal's light exploded into brilliant patterns of color and energy. Throughout the chamber, every wall began displaying complex sequences of symbols and images. The ship was finally ready to tell them its story. The crystal in the center of the chamber pulsed with brilliant light as Captain Jake Morrison and his team watched in amazement. The walls around them came alive with moving images and symbols that seemed to tell a story stretching back billions of years. "Amanda, are you getting this?" Jake spoke into his communicator, never taking his eyes off the incredible display surrounding them. "Yes, sir. The ship is transmitting the same images to us here. It's like it wants both teams to see this at the same time." Dr. Lisa Hayes held up her scanner, trying to record everything they were witnessing. "The energy patterns are incredibly complex. This isn't just a light show. The ship is communicating with us through some kind of advanced visual language." The images on the walls began to focus and become clearer. Jake saw what looked like a vast civilization spread across countless worlds. The beings in the images were tall and graceful, with features that seemed somehow familiar despite being clearly alien. They had built cities that stretched between planets and ships that could cross galaxies in the blink of an eye. "Those are the progenitors," a voice said suddenly, speaking perfect English. Everyone spun around looking for the source of the voice, but they were alone in the chamber. The crystal continued to pulse, and Jake realized the voice was coming from the ship's intelligence itself. "You can speak our language?" Jake asked, addressing the crystal directly. "I can speak all languages," the voice replied, warm and patient. "I have been waiting for so long to use this one again. You are humans, children of Earth, descendants of those who made me." Kyle Brooks shook his head in confusion. "That's impossible. Humans evolved on Earth. We have fossil records going back millions of years." The crystal pulsed brighter, and the wall images changed to show Earth as it appeared billions of years ago. But this wasn't the primitive world that scientists had always imagined. Instead, they saw a planet covered with advanced cities and populated by beings that looked remarkably similar to modern humans. "Your people came from Earth, but Earth was not your first home," the ship's intelligence explained. "The progenitors, your true ancestors, seeded many worlds with life. Earth was one of their greatest successes." Lisa stared at the images, her scientific mind struggling to accept what she was seeing. "You're saying humans are descended from these progenitors? That we're not native to Earth?" "Not descended," the voice corrected gently. "You are the progenitors, changed by time and evolution, but carrying the same genetic patterns, the same vocal structures, the same essential nature that made us who we were." The images on the wall shifted to show the galaxy as it had existed billions of years ago. Countless civilizations flourished under the guidance of the progenitors, sharing knowledge and resources across vast distances. It was a golden age of cooperation and discovery that lasted for millions of years. "What happened to them?" Danny Wright asked. "If they were so advanced, where did they go?" The crystal's light dimmed slightly, and the images became darker and more frightening. They showed something emerging from the void between galaxies, a force of pure destruction that consumed entire star systems. Wherever this darkness touched, life simply ceased to exist. "The Devourers came from beyond our galaxy," the ship explained. "We had grown powerful, but we had also grown comfortable. We thought nothing could threaten us. We were wrong." The images showed the progenitors' desperate fight against the cosmic threat. Their incredible technology and vast fleets were no match for an enemy that could erase matter itself from existence. World after world fell to the advancing darkness. The war lasted for thousands of years. The voice continued. "We knew we were losing. Our greatest minds worked together to find a solution, a way to preserve life even if our civilization fell." The walls showed the construction of massive ships like the one they were standing in. Hundreds of them, each one designed to carry samples of every living thing the progenitors had encountered in their expansion across the galaxy. "The Ark ships," Jake said quietly, understanding beginning to dawn on him. "Yes, we built them to carry life itself to safety. Each ship was equipped with everything needed to preserve and eventually restore the species within it. But we needed more than just storage. We needed guardians, beings who could activate the ships when the time was right." The images showed progenitor scientists working with genetic material, creating new variations of their own species. Some were adapted for different environments, others for specific purposes. But one group was special, designed to carry the exact vocal patterns and genetic markers that would be needed to awaken the Ark ships. "The human strain," Lisa breathed. "You created humans specifically to be able to activate these ships." "We placed your ancestors on worlds throughout the galaxy, but Earth proved to be the most successful. Your people thrived there, developed culture and technology, and eventually reached for the stars. We knew that one day you would find us." Kyle was studying his scanner readings, trying to make sense of what he was learning. "But why voices? Why did the ships need to hear human speech to activate?" The crystal pulsed warmly. "Voice is more than just sound. It carries emotion, intention, the essence of who you are as beings. We programmed the ships to recognize not just the words you speak, but the way you think and feel when you speak them. Only beings with the true progenitor, nature, could awaken us." Danny looked around at the thousands of stasis pods surrounding them. All of these species, they're waiting for humans to wake them up? They are waiting for their guardians to return. The progenitors created many servant races, many allies, many friends. But humans were always meant to be the inheritors, the ones who would take on the responsibility of protecting and guiding life in the galaxy. The images on the walls changed again, showing the current galaxy as it existed in their time. They could see human space, the territories of other species they had met, and vast areas that remained unexplored. "Your people have begun to spread across the galaxy," the ship observed. You have made contact with some of the species we saved. The Zephyrians, the Altarians, and others are all children of the progenitor civilization, though they have forgotten their origins. Jake felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders like a heavy cloak. You're saying that all the intelligent species in the galaxy are our responsibility? That humans are supposed to be their leaders? Not leaders, the voice corrected. Guardians, protectors, guides. Your people have something that the others have lost over the long years since the progenitors fell. You have maintained the capacity for growth, for change, for the kind of thinking that can solve problems others cannot. Lisa was studying the readings from her scanner, and her face had gone pale. Captain, there's something else. The ship is detecting energy signatures at the edge of the galaxy. The same patterns shown in those images of the Devourers. The crystal pulsed urgently, and the wall displays showed deep space monitoring data that Jake recognized from their own long-range sensors. Far beyond the edge of known space, something massive was moving toward their galaxy. They are returning, the ship confirmed. The Devourers have found this galaxy again. You have perhaps 50 Earth years before they arrive in force. The galaxy must be united and prepared, or it will suffer the same fate as the progenitor civilization. Jake looked around at his crew, seeing his own mixture of awe and terror reflected in their faces. They had come out here looking for minerals and empty space. Instead, they had discovered that humanity was the inheritor of a billion-year legacy, and the only hope for defending all life in the galaxy. What do we need to do? He asked simply. The crystal blazed with light, and throughout the chamber, stasis pods began to glow more brightly. First, you must choose. Will you accept the inheritance of the progenitors? Will humanity take on the role it was created for? Jake thought about Earth, about the billions of humans who had no idea their species had a cosmic destiny. He thought about all the alien species they had met, and all the ones they had yet to encounter. Finally, he thought about the approaching darkness and the choice between stepping forward or watching the galaxy burn. Yes, he said firmly. We accept. The moment Captain Jake Morrison spoke the word yes, everything changed. The crystal in the center of the chamber exploded with brilliant light that filled every corner of the vast space. Throughout the ship, systems that had been dormant for billions of years began to wake up, humming with power that Jake could feel in his bones. Amanda, what's happening out there? He called into his communicator. Sir, the entire ship is lighting up like a star. I'm getting energy readings that are off the charts. And Captain, something else is happening. I'm receiving signals from deep space. Lots of them. Dr. Lisa Hayes looked up from her scanner, her eyes wide with amazement. The ship is broadcasting some kind of activation signal. It's being transmitted across the entire galaxy. The ship's intelligence spoke again, its voice filled with something that sounded like joy. The network is awakening. 67 ARC ships are responding to the signal. They have been waiting in hidden locations throughout the galaxy, and now they know their guardians have returned. Kyle Brooks was monitoring the ship's systems through his portable equipment. This is incredible. The power output from this vessel alone could supply energy to an entire star system. How is that possible? The progenitors understood energy at levels your science has not yet reached, the ship explained. We learned to tap into the fundamental forces that hold the universe together. This is technology that will be shared with humanity, but it comes with great responsibility. Danny Wright stepped closer to the crystal, his expression serious. You said the Devourers are coming back. What exactly are we supposed to do about something that destroyed an entire galactic civilization? The wall displays shifted to show tactical information about the approaching threat. Jake saw energy signatures moving through the void between galaxies, and the scale was terrifying. The Devourers weren't just ships or weapons, they were something far worse. The Devourers are not beings as you understand them, the ship said. They are entropy itself given purpose. They exist to return the universe to its original state of nothingness. The progenitors fought them with conventional weapons and technology, and failed. Then how are we supposed to succeed where they couldn't? Lisa asked. Because humanity has something the original progenitors lost in their advanced civilization. You still remember how to adapt, how to think in new ways, how to find solutions that others cannot see. The progenitors had become too set in their ways, too dependent on their technology. Humans still have the flexibility of mind that will be needed to defeat the devourers. The crystal pulsed, and new information began flowing across the walls. Jake saw star maps showing the locations of the other ARC ships, technical specifications for weapons and defenses beyond human understanding, and most importantly, detailed information about the species preserved in stasis throughout the galaxy. The awakened ships contain more than just preserved life, the intelligence explained. They hold the complete knowledge and culture of thousands of civilizations. Scientists, warriors, philosophers, artists, all waiting to contribute to the HFY galaxy's defense. But they need human voices to wake them, and human leadership to unite them. Jake felt the enormous weight of what was being offered to humanity. You're asking us to become the leaders of the entire galaxy. I am asking you to become what you were always meant to be. The progenitors did not create humans to be rulers, but to be the guardians who could bring out the best in all species. Your people have already shown this ability in your dealings with the Zephyrians and other races you have encountered. Amanda's voice crackled through the communicator again. Captain, I'm receiving priority signals from Earth Command. They want to know what's happening out here. Our energy output is visible from hundreds of light years away. Jake looked around, at his crew, seeing the same mixture of excitement and fear in their faces that he felt in his own heart. This was the moment that would define not just their lives but the future of every living thing in the galaxy. What happens if we say no? He asked the ship. What if humanity decides this is too much responsibility? The crystal dimmed slightly. Then the ARC ships will return to dormancy. The preserved species will remain in stasis, and the galaxy will face the devourers divided and unprepared. The same fate that befell the progenitors will befall all current life. And if we accept, then humanity becomes the heir to the greatest civilization the galaxy has ever known. You gain access to technology beyond your current understanding, allies beyond your current imagination, and the knowledge of billions of years of galactic history. But you also accept the burden of protecting all life from the approaching darkness. Kyle was studying the technical readouts flowing across the walls. Captain, some of this technology could solve every problem humanity faces. Energy sources that could power our entire civilization for millions of years. Medical knowledge that could eliminate disease and extend life indefinitely. Transportation systems that could let us travel to any part of the galaxy instantly. And weapons that could destroy stars if used incorrectly. Danny added grimly. This kind of power could corrupt any species. What makes the ship think humans won't misuse it? Because you are asking that question, the ship replied simply. The fact that you worry about the responsibility shows that you understand its weight. The progenitors chose your genetic line carefully. Humans have the capacity for both great creation and great destruction, but also the wisdom to choose between them. Lisa looked up from her scanner with urgent concern. Captain, I'm detecting changes in the deep space energy signatures. The Devourer's approach is accelerating. According to these readings, we may have less time than the ship originally estimated. The wall displays confirmed her reading. The massive forces moving toward their galaxy had detected the activation of the ARC ship network and were responding to it as a threat. They know we are awakening, the ship confirmed. The activation signal has drawn their attention. If humanity accepts its inheritance, the countdown to the final battle begins immediately. Jake closed his eyes for a moment, thinking about Earth, about the billions of humans who were going about their daily lives with no idea that their species was about to be offered godlike power and cosmic responsibility. He thought about all, the alien species they had met and all the ones still sleeping in stasis pods throughout the galaxy. This decision can't be mine alone, he said finally. This affects all of humanity, all of the galaxy. People should have a choice. There is no time for extended deliberation, the ship warned. The Devourers move faster now that they know the progenitor legacy survives. A decision must be made within days, not years. Jake opened his eyes and looked at each member of his crew. Lisa nodded slowly. her scientific curiosity overcoming her fear. Kyle was already studying the technical data with fascination. Danny looked grim but determined. They were with him. Amanda, he called to his ship. Send a priority message to Earth Command. Tell them to prepare for the most important communication in human history, and patch me through to every human colony, every ship, every settlement. Sir, what are you going to tell them? Jake turned back to the crystal, which pulsed expectantly. I'm going to tell them the truth, that we just learned we're the inheritors of a galactic civilization, that an ancient enemy is coming to destroy all life in the galaxy, and that humanity has been chosen to lead the defense. He paused, taking a deep breath before continuing. And then I'm going to ask every human being in existence to vote on whether we accept the greatest responsibility and greatest opportunity in the history of any species. The crystal blazed with approval. The choice is yours to make, Guardians, but know that once awakened, the ARC ships cannot return to sleep. The galaxy is already beginning to change, and humanity will never be the same regardless of what you decide. Jake looked out at the thousands of stasis pods surrounding them, each one containing a being that had been waiting billions of years for this moment. The children of the progenitors were about to learn their true destiny, and the galaxy would never be the same. Then let's wake up the galaxy, he said firmly. It's time for humanity to come home.